Welcome to Building Fortunes Radio. Make sure you check us out at buildingfortunesradio.com. Along with our marketing partners, we're here to help our PM Marketing Network Lead customers build their businesses and make the world a better place. At Building Fortunes, we know how much your business means to you and the people important to you. So spread the word, tell a friend, join our newsletter, and go make a difference in your world. Now on to our show with your host, Peter Mingles.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingles here. You're listening to us on Building Fortunes Radio. It's www.buildingfortunesradio.com for those people that might be unfamiliar with my voice, because we might have some first-time listeners. My name is Peter Mingles. We started Building Fortunes Radio way back at the end of 2012 into the early parts of 2013, and I really wanted Building Fortunes Radio to be a platform where we could have a voice to talk about the things that I wanted to talk about, or have my Building Fortunes Radio listening audience have a chance to hear. So there's a lot of really great things that happen in home-based businesses, and I was doing a radio show with a gentleman named Roger Van Blissingen many years ago. As a matter of fact, it was in August, I'm almost positive, in the year that Vemma was just shut down by the FTC temporarily. And Roger was an MLM critic, and I don't mind talking to MLM critics because Roger's a really smart dude. And he was also very knowledgeable and very sincerely, I think, correct about some of his criticism about MLM. So I did that radio show. He brought some backup, a guy named E. Robert Smith. We had a couple of great shows. Scott Johnson called me up on Labor Day, and because I was working and he called, and most people wouldn't think we were working, Scott and I had a multi-hour conversation about some of the things that were going on, and Scott said, Scott, I hate to say it, but I think that deer is there. So anyway, so we're watching, by the way, to see those people that are listening in, we're watching FlaglerBeach.tv. So FlaglerBeach.tv, that's one of my channels, or one of my websites. There's a critter cam, and you can see the deer eating from the bird feeder that my daughter gave me. So we're like regular people, too. So having said any or all of that sort of stuff, Scott and I had a really multiple-hour conversation about some of the things that were going on in the industry, and specifically about the tools scam. And when he said the tool scam, and a lot of people didn't know about the tool scam, I wanted to ask him what he meant by the tool scam, because I thought I knew what he probably meant. But when he told me the name of his website, which is still stoptheamwaytoolscam.wordpress.com, I said, I know now we're talking about the same one, because I had hired and fired myself 3 separate times with Amway specifically, because I was interested in learning about network marketing. And then I figured when I had the opportunity to join some, there was that one company called Amway. I figured might as well join the biggest one, the most successful one. If you're going to be in something long term, might as well join something I thought was going to be sticking around. And I quit the first time mostly because of the tool scam. They wanted me to buy books and tapes and go to all these functions, and I grew up in direct sales. I'm used to buying books. I'm used to listening to tapes. I'm used to going to functions. Let me tell you, their books, their tapes, their functions were not like the types of things that we were accustomed to. So I was focused on making sales and building a business. They were talking about a whole bunch of other things. So I quit. And then I joined again because I figured, well, maybe I had a bad experience. I'll try it again. And then same thing. Then I quit. And then I did the next thing the third time. But this time I told them, listen, this whole tool scam, I said to the gentleman that was the upline from the person recruiting me, if I find out it's about this, the books, the tapes, and functions things all over again, I'm out of here. No. The guy said, and anyway, it was. So I left again. So when Scott Johnson said the tool scam, I kind of knew what he was talking about. So we started doing our radio show. If you go to buildingfortunesradio.com/Scott-Johnson, so put like a dash, like a minus sign in between his first and last name, you'll be able to hear all of the previous radio shows that we've done. And Scott and I have done probably a couple 100 radio shows by now. And as a result of that, we talked about a whole bunch of really cool subjects. And Scott many times has unbelievable guests too. We've had guests that were actresses, if you will, on some movies. We've had people that were witnesses. We've had people that were reporters. We've had journalists. We've had a whole bunch of different things. And tonight we have a special guest as well, and I'm going to kind of step out of the way to say first thanks for Scott for doing all the unbelievable things that he does. We get a chance to host this radio show at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday nights, and then we put it up on the web so you'll be able to listen to it. And Scott, that's 7:30 on the Central Time for all those people listening in. And Scott does an amazing job throughout the week to do some research and bring some guests on, as well as what's going to happen tonight. So, Scott Johnson, thanks for being here.
Hey, Peter, thanks for having me. And it looks like the deer and the raccoon are eating cooperatively. The deer is in the bird feeder, and I guess the raccoon is getting the spillover. So very, very cooperative, very, very interesting live picture here in your backyard in Florida. Yeah, you mentioned the tool scam, and just for those people that might be tuning in for the first time, the tool scam, I call it the ATS, the Amway tool scam, and I was in Amway for, depending on how you want to count it, 12 or 16 years. 12 years as a true believer, and then 4 more years after I found out about the tool scam, and I thought, gee, maybe I could put together a legitimate Amway business. And after getting no cooperation from Amway for about 4 years, I thought, this is just not going to work out. So I don't really like to quit things, so I just started doing things I figured they would not appreciate, and they would kick me out. And they obliged. They terminated me. So that's kind of how I got to where I am. So that was from 1993 until 2009 when I got terminated. That's the time frame I was in. And to your point, sometimes you hear from people, they say, oh, you were just in a bad group. You just weren't with a good group. And I'll have to remember your experience when that comes up next time, Peter, because you were in 3 different times and they were all pretty much the same, particularly when it comes to the tool scam. And so the reason we call it a tool scam is because the people that are at higher levels, I'm talking like Emerald, Diamond, and above, they make far more money from the tools than they do from the Amway business, but they don't talk about it. They promote the Amway business as if it was where they made their money and their lifestyle. And we're talking about various meetings, books, recordings, phone applications, phone apps, voicemail, website access. There's just a variety of different tools that are meant to motivate and train people. And I think they do a decent job at that, by the way, as far as the actual content. It's just that when they keep silent on where most of their money's coming from, then that's, to me, that's RICO fraud. I'm not a lawyer, but I think that's RICO fraud. It's certainly misleading to mislead people into thinking that Amway is where the money comes from, and in reality, it really comes from the tools. And so that's why we call it the tool scam. Now, the other problem that I see in MLM, and I think it's a lot more common than the tool scam. Not all MLMs have those, but pretty much every MLM I've ever come across has the second issue, which is the lack of retail sales to outside customers. It doesn't count for the distributors to buy the products as far as counting as retail sales. You really have to find customers who are not distributors willing to buy the products, and since most MLM products are overpriced compared to comparable products in the marketplace, there's very few customers. Now, that is the definition of an illegal pyramid. That's all over the FTC, Federal Trade Commission website, ftc.gov. If you go to ftc.gov and do a search for MLM, you'll see all kinds of information regarding MLMs that they've taken to court and had shut down, different companies that they've sued over the years and they settled out of court. But pretty much in every case, one of the big issues is lack of retail sales to outside customers. So that's the other problem, and I just wish that the FTC would not just pick off an MLM every once in a while, but go after the whole industry, because I think the whole industry shares this issue, this problem of lack of retail sales. So that's part of the reason we do this show, is to bring attention to those two main issues, because neither one of us are anti-MLM. We just want it to be done the right way. We want there to be retail sales, and there's no law that defines what the minimum is. The FTC kind of draws a line at 50-50. In other words, if you're selling as much as you're consuming yourself for your own personal needs, then that's considered to be a legitimate MLM. If it's less than that, in most MLMs it's a lot less. It's not even close. It's in the low single-digit percentage. We're talking 3 to 5% maybe. That's what goes on in the industry. But, of course, the tool scam is the other big problem, and I think it's the bigger problem if the MLM has that problem, because it's really impacting people's profitability, and they don't realize that not only is it affecting their profitability, but it also puts the upline in a light that they really don't belong in, as far as their lifestyle. All of their mansions and yachts and motor coaches and luxury cars and airplanes and all those toys, when you look at them, those came from the tool scam. They did not come from Amway. You can make probably a decent middle-class living based on the Amway income, but with all the travel these people do, they couldn't live in more than a shack if they were depending only on the Amway money. They really need that tool scam money to really show off their lifestyle. So today we've got a great guest. I've talked to him on the phone at least once, I think it was, Bexten.
Yeah.
We just had a great conversation. It almost seemed like, Peter, I was talking into a mirror because this gentleman's experience is so similar to mine, and our insights and so forth and our experiences. It's pretty amazing. So his name is Bexten Maina.
Yes, you got it.
And Bexten,
you got it.
if you could just tell us, where you're from, how you got to where you are geographically, and some of your, your background, your education. Just go ahead and give us a little bit of your background. Go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Scott and Peter, for the platform that you've given me. So I was born in Kenya, and I grew up there for about 20 years, did my primary and secondary schooling. And then just like I'm the last born of 4 kids. And so just similar to my 2 brothers and my sister who studied overseas for their university education, I applied for the same, and I came to Canada in around 2001. And then 5 years later, I graduated economics with a business degree in economics. And I went to work, and I worked for a consultancy group in Halifax. That is on the eastern seaboard, just right above New York, Maine. And I worked there for 3 years until the crash of 2008. And that's when we got laid off, about a third of us or so in the company. So at the time I had met my ex, and so we left Halifax, and we crossed all the way to Western Canada, where she decided to upgrade and get her master's. I decided to, at that time, the jobs were scarce, so I worked as a community, basically with folks who have physical and mental disabilities. And so I did that at minimum wage, and I did that for a year and a half up until she was done her master's. And then we moved to a different part of the province of Alberta, where she herself got a job with the provincial government, which she has been doing for the last almost 10 years. And for me, despite having my education background, I would only get a job starting at minimum wage. In the economics field, probably $2 or $3 more. But the province of Alberta is the wealthiest province with its industry of resource extraction, mostly oil and gas. So I chose to go into the field, which doubled, which actually paid me 2.5 times my wage, minimum wage, sorry. And so I had also a newborn. My daughter had just been born in 2010. So that's what I continued working in. Bought a house, yada, yada, the life was good, although I had to travel for work. And then came the oil crash of 2014, and then I was laid off in just towards the end of 2015. And that is a time that I met the lady who recruited me into Amway.
Yeah, and if you could tell us a little bit about that story, just to fill folks into how you were approached and so forth.
Okay, sure. So yeah, so during this time, so in the fall of 2015, having been laid off again because of the oil crash, I met this lady. I'm just going to call her Jane for now. And I met her at the library, and that's when she approached me. And she just started a conversation like anyone does. The only difference here and what teach you to do is to ask questions. And because as human beings, we have a desire to be heard, especially when things are not going so great in our lives. And in my case, I was struggling to get employment. So she sat down, asked about my life, where I came from, much the same as you're doing, and asked me what my dreams were, what I wanted to accomplish in life, or are those things that I wanted to do. So I told her, I wanted to live a life where I could be with my family, not have to travel for work, see my kids, enjoy life, go back home to Kenya and visit my family there pretty much whenever I wanted, and not have debt or other financial obstacles in my way. So this had gone on for about an hour, and in that time period, she also revealed that she was quote-unquote a Christian. I was too. So there was a level of trust that was already building up with her. So she went on to say to me that, okay, I'm a part of a group which is looking to expand, and we are a bunch of business folks. So that kind of rang a. It was similar to my background. So she said, we are a bunch of business folks who want to expand in your area, and we are looking for folks who can help us with this expansion. And that's when we exchanged numbers. She never told me what group she was a part of, and it was funny because at that point it sort of turned around whereby I was now seeking her out. And so even though she never told me who she was involved with, I still had that urgency to get to know her, to get to know what she was a part of. So when she gave me her phone number, I drove back. So she was living an hour and a half north of my primary residence. So I went back home. I was still with my ex at the time, and I said to her, hey, I met this lady, and looks like I might be getting a job. So I was of the idea that I was going to be recruited for a job, and I had no red flags or anything about this being an MLM or some scam or anything suspicious for that fact. So then a couple of days later, I had given her a call back, and we discussed again on the phone. And then she said, okay, now by this time I was asking her what she was a part of, but again, she was able to spin away from the question and say, look, I'm going to send you a book. And this book was The Business of the 21st Century by Robert Kiyosaki. I want you to read that book. It doesn't tell you about who we are, but it's going to tell you what kind of business we are involved in. So she mailed the book to me. I got the book. I read it in a couple of hours. I was very glued to the book. It's Robert Kiyosaki basically talking about the advantages of network marketing and how the world is moving towards a virtual online business presence instead of your traditional brick and mortar stores. So finished the book, gave her a call back, and she told me, "Oh, that's great, blah blah blah. So I want you to know that we are looking for a certain specific type of individual, and what I want you to do is meet those folks who are in charge of this business." And so there was a convention that was happening in my town of Red Deer, which is central Alberta. And this is called the FED, or Freedom Enterprise Days. So in these functions, we get pretty much the cream of Amway gets to come down from the States as well as Canada. So I attended that event, and I was kind of taken aback with all the display of wealth, the dancing music, the flashing lights, and just, it was just a crazy, and everybody with the rah-rah and getting up and clapping their hands every 5 minutes. And I was just, I was really green and out of my element. So I sat there that day, and then it's an event that goes on it starts on a Friday. So it starts on a Friday evening, then a whole Saturday, then concludes on Sunday by 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So we completed that. We had the Saturday as well. And then when Saturday was getting completed, I don't know why, for some reason, Amway at the time was going by the name of Quickster. So it still never, I still never sort of got an idea of what was happening. So I called Jane, my recruiter, out, and I said, "Hey, you need to tell me what's going on. You need to tell me what this is about." And that's when she told me, "Are you there?"
Yes, go right ahead.
Oh, sorry. I could hear, I was hearing some crackling sound in the background. Sorry. So anyway, she said to me, "Okay, this is how this business works. We help you launch a virtual store, and you drive traffic to that store via your store. So you launch your own store, and people buy products from you, and they buy products from Amway, which is linked, which is your main store, your manufacturer, and they buy the products through your virtual store, and then you get a commission from that. And so this is how it works." So
and just to make a couple comments before you go a lot further, Bexten. One of the things we were taught also, and I think you were in Worldwide Dream Builders, is that right?
That's correct.
Yes. So I was in a different group, but all these different groups are much more similar than they are different. And in fact, one of the main reasons is they all came from one group, and then there was little splinters, that broke off over the years, and that's why they're so similar. But we were also taught to ask questions, because when you ask questions, you're actually in control of the conversation. It almost seems backwards, but that is true. I found that in real life, that's true. When you ask people questions, you really are in control of the conversation. Not that we're trying to scam you on this show, of course, by asking you to talk. But that's definitely true. And there are certain things that I learned at Amway that did help me, outside of Amway from a practical standpoint. So, I'm not here to flush the whole thing down. But one of those things is that when you ask questions, you're in control of the conversation. And another thing that kind of tickled me when you were saying that they're looking for a particular person, I was thinking, they're breathing. They can fog a mirror, right? When they exhale, their breath can fog a mirror. That's the special person that they're looking for. And as a fellow Christian, that's one of the things that really gripes me a lot, is they come on with this Christian persona, but then the way that they behave with their scam, is completely opposite of that, but it's kind of, how they camouflage themselves and how they cause people to let their guard down, is that sort of Christian persona that they like to show people, and
Right.
it's just kind of interesting. And Peter, before we continued, was there anything that you wanted to mention?
No, this is very similar, in the deception that the other people that we've spoken to. So we're just kind of hearing it again at a different level. But unfortunately, from some of the younger gals we spoke to, they were younger college students or just out of college or right around college. So this is the same story, but for a gentleman who had more at risk, more at stake, and more to lose. So continue, Bexten. This is good stuff.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention, we had a guest on 2 or 3 weeks ago, Peter, that mentioned that they also use the Quickstar name, which I have found over the years is kind of a trait of Worldwide Dream Builders. They seem to be the group that hung on to that name, when in reality what really happened was, Amway started in 1959, and then in North America, which is mostly United States and Canada, that was in 1999, they started the name Quickstar because they went online and they wanted to kind of, show that it's different. And that continued until they announced they were going back to Amway in 2007. And it took about a 2-year period between 2007 and 2009 for that transition to be complete. And this woman we were talking to, Peter, I think she was in somewhere close to the same time frame that we're talking about right now, somewhere around 2015, 16, 17, somewhere in there. And they did mention Quickstar, and the way it was explained was Quickstar was the old business that was the door-to-door business, and then, with all this high tech, they changed it to the Amway name. Now it's actually the exact opposite. Quickstar, that name they came up with that name, in 1999 to get away from the door-to-door Amway understanding, and sort of the cool online vehicle that they were trying to promote, back there 1999 to 2009 about. So it's just funny how they take history and twist it around and make it almost really the opposite of what it was. But they use that to explain Quickstar, which apparently I haven't heard anyone say that they've totally gotten away from using Quickstar instead of Amway, at least in the beginning. They kind of use Quickstar, I think, to throw people off so that they don't Google Amway right away. But you can Google Quickstar too, assuming you can spell it, because it's kind of a strange spelling. But sorry for the interruption there. Go ahead with your story. I think you were just wrapping up that major function, and you were kind of blown away by the different presentation, let's call it. It is pretty wild. I went to them for a dozen years, so I know exactly what you're talking about. All the lights and loud music, and people showing off their lifestyles, and little did you know, the ticket you bought to attend that function is mainly what funded all that lifestyle you were being shown. So go right ahead.
Yeah, and just for
let me just correct.
Yep,
yeah,
and for clarification with Bexten, you actually went to a function before you were even part of the organization, it sounds like. Like they had you go to that thing even before you joined Amway.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You wanted to clarify something.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to clarify that before you become a business partner, your recruiter is the one that pays for the function, because they get in their ticket, they can bring one guest with them. So Jane is the one who paid for my ticket, and then I was able to attend the function. So once she made this information new to me, for some reason, I was hooked. And so even though I went and Googled Amway and I saw a bunch of stuff that was on it, I think in my head I was like, but these guys are in the plane. They're not hiding. So, and I thought, okay, I will probably just check it out. And if I don't like it, I'm going to leave and I'll be out the door. So I joined. So that would be, so basically I went to another meeting. Well, in this case, it was a board meeting, sorry. And I was able to meet now her director, Rubies or Emeralds, Dave and Esther Zhang from Calgary. So I was able to go do that board meeting, which was in the house of Jane. So in January, after all had been done, I swallowed the whole idea that I could live my dreams through this organization. I could sell a bunch of stuff, recruit a bunch of folks, and even though it wasn't sold like that at the beginning, I just felt that I might be able to drive traffic to my website and then be able to make some money from there. And so I got signed up to become an IBO in January of 2016, and we carried on from there. The second major function I went to was called Dream Night, and this one usually has a platinum, and then the guest speaker is a diamond. My diamonds in Alberta were Dean and Marcy Whalen. And so they came and spoke at that function, and that was the first time I met them. And then it started now what I would call the routine. And the routine is 2 board meetings every month, and those are held at an individual they are seeing is so-called rising. And so in this case, it would be the lady that recruited me. And obviously she was the first level that she was hoping to get to was the Eagle level, where you have got 6 IBOs under you. So I was one. And she never got past me. She signed up, I think, one individual alone in those 17 months. So she never ever got to get more than 2 IBOs. Myself and another IBO signed under her, and that other individual quit before me. So 2 board meetings every month, and then there would be at least, not major function, but I would call it one of those meetings. They're called second looks. They've got different terminologies for themselves, but they bring a diamond. There's always a diamond there, 1 or 2 of them. So it can be the baker's, it can be my own diamonds. Now these ones are done by your own diamond in your area. In this case, it would be Dean and Marcy Whalen. So we would attend these functions. I attended about 3 in addition to the other 2 board meetings. So those would be 5 that I would do every month. Now, I worked as hard as I possibly could. In fact, I lost in a space of about 6 to 8 months, I lost about 25 to 30 pounds because of this work is what I call pounding the pavement, because that's exactly what you do trying to recruit individuals. And I would go to the malls, I would go to the Starbucks, I would even sign myself up for any social gatherings that were happening around, whether it was a stampede, whether it was like, folks driving their dirt bikes, or there's a wine tasting festival, or it's a hockey game, baseball game, whatever it was. I would sign myself in those events so that I could approach individuals, but to no avail. I think there was one, I brought about 3 individuals total to the functions, but never got to sign one person up. And I told Scott that was one of my greatest achievements, was the fact that I was unable to sell someone on this absolutely evil idea, an evil company. So I was the only one that got to suffer through it. So
yeah, I just wanted to comment. I just wanted to comment real quick that
Go ahead.
when you said that, when we were talking the first time, I have almost exactly the same idea. I am so thankful, that I never got very far, in Amway, because then I would have been, responsible for a lot of people losing money. Now, when I was trying to get people involved and did get a few involved over the years, I thought I was operating within a legitimate company, a legitimate business. And so, people have tried to make me feel guilty in the past, going, well, you tried to scam people. And I always say, no, I thought I was in a legitimate business. And once I found out I was not, then I became very thankful that I did not, quote unquote, succeed, because who knows what would have happened. Maybe I would have gotten far enough along to where I quit my job. And then if I found out it was a scam, maybe somehow in my mind I would have, determined by twisting things around that it's still okay, because I probably would have had difficulty finding a job after, being an Amway for a while and not really having a real job for a period of time. And I probably would have seen no escape path, and I would just say, gosh, I have to keep doing this now. I'm kind of trapped, in a way. And I'm equally very thankful that I did not succeed, by Amway's definition, in putting together a large, let's say, emerald or diamond ship. So go right ahead there, Bexten.
Yeah, no, definitely, and so for me, as time was going by, one of the concepts that they talk about when you are in when you join something or become a part of something where you are you're losing money, you're losing something, whether it's your dignity, your own self-respect, or resources, your family, that sort of thing. They talk about a sunken costs mentality where you look back and you look and say, well, I've spent X amount of time, X amount of dollars in this project. And even though it's a project that is that is a failure, that is going to fail, you still justify yourself or in your mind by saying, I've put too much into it. And that's how I felt. Now, I wouldn't, I paid I paid you had to pay your $150, which was and this is part of the tool scam. So $150 every month was what was called a registration fee. That they would explain that was no different than what a business pays every month to run. So you had $150 for that, and then you had $35 for Communicate, which was a voice message system that allowed for you to leave voice messages and other folks to leave voice messages. So that's your total of $185 plus tax. So that was and then there was another fee, and it was a gold membership fee that you had to pay in order to get access to their tapes and recordings. That was like another $20 or $25. So $200 of that every month was gone, and that is part of that tool scam. And then add to that because these conventions were not free, even just a nuts and bolts meeting, you had to pay $10, $20 for that meeting. If I had to drive, the only things were quote unquote free were those board meetings that we did in someone's basement. But any other function where a diamond or a platinum came to speak, we had to pay at least $10, and you're looking at least 1,500 to 2,500 guests that were in these functions or IBOs, whatever you want to call them, that were in these functions every evening. So,
and what did that?
I think,
what did that? That $150 a month. What did that buy you? What did you get from that?
We were told that 150 was, so the way it was explained to us was the worldwide group, because as you said, you've got the worldwide group, Network 21, Brit Worldwide, and these are all splinter organizations that are basically benefiting a bunch of guys who decided to benefit from the tools and not directly from the business as they explain it. So that $150 we were told was for the worldwide group. So in other words, they would term it as a university of wealth, that you're in this university and it's no different than the overhead costs that a business pays. But it was going. We knew that it was going into the coffers of worldwide group.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Peter, I can't remember anyone in any other group, certainly not my experience, where we just paid money and didn't get anything back. Now, the money we paid, it was for overpriced tools, but we got something back. It was never, this is sort of your business license, $150 a month, a business license essentially. That's really interesting. I wonder if that's the way it is throughout worldwide or just within your diamond ship. And by the way, I looked up Dean and Marcy Whalen online, and they do have a website where they, almost break their arms patting themselves on the back, of course. But there's one word that's not mentioned on that site that I can find. Guess what word that is?
Scam? I'm just going to...
Probably Amway.
Amway.
Oh, Amway. Oh, there you go.
or Quickstar, of course. I looked up Quickstar. Yeah. I did a search for Quickstar and Amway, and neither word shows up. They just have this idyllic scene of a perfect couple with a great life and smiles all around, and not a problem in the world. Of course, if you can get away with scamming people for that long, I'd probably be pretty happy too. So, anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's
no, please,
that is
please do. I just want to.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That $150 a month business fee
overhead.
Yeah, that's overhead. Yes, business overhead. Stuff my pockets. Wow, incredible.
Wow.
So what's
amazing, Scott, is what's amazing, Scott, is we're not just talking about Bexten being the only person. We're talking about a room full of a few hundred people. That's the magnitude of this.
Or thousands. Yes.
Yeah. The magnitude of this is amazing. Yeah. So for some people, you're not making $2 for an audio cassette, or you're not making whatever. You're making $150 plus the $35. Now maybe some service company is being paid a portion of that, but you're talking about hundreds and thousands of people just in your geographic area. Multiply that by major geographic areas, multiply that by sometimes even countries, and now you take a look at the magnitude of the tool scam. So this isn't just chump change. This is real big dollars. So when you talk about that motor coach, that private jet, that lifestyle, the rich and famous, that multi-million-dollar house, now you'll see what we're talking about, because it's possible. It's possible when you talk about numbers like this. And we're not even talking about, functions and books and everything else that's going on. It's incredible. So, Scott, thanks for bringing Bexten here, and thanks for allowing me to kind of underline the magnitude of this. It's insane. So back to you, Scott.
No, it's huge, and I guess I had a question for you. When you first joined up, when you first went to that first major function, I assume it was by yourself, because your sponsor only had one extra ticket. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yeah, I could have brought my spouse if I wanted, but yeah, it's one guest.
Right, and how far away was that from where you live?
Actually, for me, I was lucky because this one is held in my town. So all I did was drive 10 minutes.
Okay, and then future major functions that you attended, those were probably more distant, right?
That's correct. Actually, the board, everything else